Hello, I'm Dr. Brannick Riggs, Vice President of Education at TERRA, and I'm here with our amazing Scientific and Medical Education Committee to talk about protein shakes and doTERRA's protein shakes. They're quite amazing, and we'll talk about maybe what's going on with our body, why we need them. Let's start with Fernando. Fernando, let's talk about macronutrients for a moment. What are they and what do they do for us?
Macronutrients are very important for our life. So we have carbohydrates, we have fat, and we have proteins. So they make almost every function in our body. For instance, carbohydrates give us energy.
Yeah, they're a fuel source.
Yeah, fuel source. Fat is very important for the cells, so the layer of the cells are fat, but also very important for the development of the brain. And the proteins are extremely important for all the structure, but also in a lot of functions in the body. For the enzymes are protein. The hormones are protein. So the protein exists in the layer of the cells to the signals to make all the functions of the body. So it carries, for instance, other molecules. So proteins are really, really important and very vital in our life.
So Alexandra, are we getting enough of those macronutrients in our diet, or are there things that we're deficient in or maybe consuming too much of with macronutrients?
I think this depends on the people, because if we have a healthy, rainbow color, diverse diet, with healthy food, then yes, then it's great, but mostly it's not. So a lot of people eat a lot of carbohydrates, and like Fernando mentioned, our macronutrients, we have good and bad ones, and also we have good carbohydrates and bad ones, and we like the bad ones because they taste really good. They are processed. Right. And yeah, so I think we eat a lot of carbohydrate. This is the first. The second thing is we eat also a lot of fat. Fat is our friend, yes. Fat does a lot for us, but we have fatty acids, and we have the saturated and the unsaturated fatty acids, and the unsaturated one are the healthy fats. So we have to be aware, eat more from the healthy fats, but we eat also more from the unhealthy fats. We have hidden fats in our food. In the processed food, we have a lot of hidden fats. And then we come to the proteins. We need in our body 21 amino acids, but 9 of them our body can't produce. So it's vital for us to eat good proteins, and the most problem we have with proteins in our diet.
Yeah, so let's talk about, you mentioned good carbohydrates and perhaps, I would say, more challenging carbohydrates. When we're talking about those carbs, what are the things that we would value carbohydrates on? What are the things that tell us whether or not it may be a good one or not a good one for us to be consuming?
Maybe we can say it in an easy way, how long a carbohydrate is. Short carbohydrates are things like sugar, the white sugar. Long carbohydrates are the good bread, what I'm baking at home. So yeah, we have to be aware of this, so long and short.
Yeah, it seems to me that the maybe easy way also to talk about it is a simple versus a complex carbohydrate. Simple carbohydrates have been processed, right?
Yeah, processing is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
The more natural it is, the better as a general rule,
Right.
and the more basic it is. And there's a lot of highly processed foods in our diet these days.
Yeah, and so the very few things are grown perfectly white. And when a carbohydrate comes out perfectly white,
Yes.
you know it's been processed,
Yes.
right? So whole wheat flour is a darker color than is white bleached flour. And that's a simple carbohydrate in the white bleached versus the complex there. We talk about healthy fats and unhealthy fats. Tell us about an example of a healthy fat. What would we be looking for? What's a source of a good healthy fat?
Healthy fats we have in fish, or we have in nuts. Healthy fats. Unhealthy fats we have in chips, in butter, and also in other food where we did not know that there is fat inside, but there is processed fat inside, yes.
Yeah. And there seems to be an emotional component to our eating in regards to healthy fats and healthy carbohydrates, right? As I travel around the world, what I find is comfort foods typically are high in carbohydrate, simple carbohydrate and high in unhealthy fat,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because it kind of feeds that emotion a little bit as well. It's an interesting thing, no matter the culture, comfort foods.
And it's a social component because processed food is cheaper, and a lot of people are buying the cheaper food. So people who have already social problems, their children and they have more problems because they can only buy the processed food and not the fresh and the healthy food.
And of course, there's the classic fast food problem, which is, you know, a lot of us are not taking the time to prepare things from the basic ingredients at home. You're going out and it's processed so that it is convenient and fast.
And
It's
that's
easy.
one of the issues, yeah.
And that's what may make a huge problem in public health, because people cannot buy better types of food, and they turn to food that are cheaper, and most of them are worse for the body.
So let's talk for a minute about the doTERRA protein shakes. Why would you recommend that source of protein over others?
The doTERRA protein shakes have, I mean, they've got a full range of the amino acids that's required. The key for protein supplementation is to have that balance of the right amino acids. As Alexandra was saying, I mean, we're looking for the essential amino acids that the body can't make itself, those 9. And there are a couple of really important ones, the branched chain amino acids, which are very, very important for things like muscle reconstruction and building. And I think doTERRA's done a really good job at getting the balance of those across the board.
And it tastes really good.
It does, absolutely, which is so very important when talking about supplementation with something, that it tastes good, right? Also, clean sources. That's the other thing I love about doTERRA. We really trust the company to bring us clean sources of the products that they have. We pride ourselves in providing a good, clean product, and the doTERRA protein shakes are amazingly clean. So, Ruth, who should consider increasing the protein intake in their diets?
Well, as we were just talking about, probably everybody,
Yeah.
but I mean, there are some specific groups where it can be really, really helpful and perhaps even really important. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is, of course, athletes, because, I mean, muscles are proteins, and I think people automatically think of protein supplementation as sort of reinforcing muscles and building up muscles. And it's true, that's a sort of major role. And that's why I say these branched chain amino acids are a really important part of that. So certainly I would say that sort of athletes, people who are going through a lot of exercise, would require it as well. As you get older too, and sadly I can reflect on this.
You and I both.
Yeah, muscle wastage is a real thing. You know, you have to work a lot harder to keep those muscles going and muscles up. So I think taking the proteins for that group of people as well, combined with exercise. As always, these are never a solution on their own. This is not a magic formula that says, you know, you take this, you're going to be buff. No, you have to do the work too. But I think those are 2 groups of people in particular who would benefit from these.
You have a pretty
protein
good
shakes.
research out there indicating that as we age and we are supplementing protein in our diet and exercising, that we're able to maintain muscle mass
It
pretty
is.
well.
It makes quite a bit, and strength, muscle strength, which I think is how they measure it. very often.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Fernando, talk to us about ideal versus reality when it comes to protein intake. You know, there's some people out there that says this is the right amount to take. What's the reality of that when it comes to the human body?
So it depends, like in medicine, everything, it depends. It depends of the individual, in particular, what the condition, the weight. So if there is any previous healthy condition, so it's important to have a good diet, to have care with the amount of protein that takes, being in vegetable sources or animal sources. But it's important to also don't forget to eat that amount, but also supplement it if needed, depending if there is an older person, if he's an athlete. And even in the athletes, you need to, depending of the sports, you need to have the amount of muscle mass. So everything depends. So it's not a magic bullet by itself, but you have to have the consideration to use the support of your doctor to just build the proper diet of the intake of protein. And the shakes here has a great role because he adds that amount of protein that you take. Sometimes it's just insufficient, even if you take amount of fish and meat or have your vegan choices, sometimes it's not enough and you need to take more. And the protein shakes could be an answer for that person and can help her to increase the level of protein. Like I said, it helps not only in the muscle, but also a lot of other functions. Probably that health will work better. Maybe that medicine probably that person takes will work better because they have enough protein to transport and all the processes that proteins are involved. So proteins levels need to be, in my opinion, checked with your doctor and have that advice to have the proper amount of protein in their body.
I've heard some recommendations of an amount that you should be consuming, but the reality is it probably should be 2 to 3 times that amount for most of us. And it's based upon weight, right, per kilogram, but knowing that we should be consuming far more than maybe some of the government recommendations are as a bare minimum. Not that we can pat ourselves on the back when we're consuming that much. That's the beginning stage. From there, we should be consuming probably 2 to 3 times that amount to really maintain our health.
Yeah. There, for instance, median individual 70, 80 kilos will need probably 100, 150, 200 grams a day of protein. And you can use it for many sources. And fortunately, we can have many sources to get those proteins.
Ruth, why have we chosen a vegan formula versus animal or whey protein?
Well, the first answer is it means that anybody here who is vegan or not can take it, which is great. I mean, it is nice to have a product that is available for everybody. But actually, it's interesting, it also means that it's dairy free, because there are, people who are lactose intolerant, and a lot of the sources that come from the animal have the disadvantage of having the lactose components within it itself. But the other thing that's nice is that despite the fact that it comes from the vegetable sources, the vegan sources, it's really well balanced.
Yeah.
Bringing the multiple sources in makes it a nice balanced, it gives you something to play with in terms of the actual amino acid content that you have in there.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Alexandra, why have we chosen the types of proteins, the different types?
Because of the biological value. The biological value is the measure of the quality of a protein in our diet. If the biological value is high, then our body can use it better for our muscle cells. And like Ruth mentioned before, it's really smart to take different plants for this purpose, because we have plants with different amino acids, and with this combination we have also a higher biological value, and we can use it better in our body.
So I think we can really sum this up by saying that the protein is something that we need to be having more of. Whether we're getting that from our diets or whether we're getting that from supplementation, which is often the case, that we definitely need more in our diet to help us in all of the different functions that proteins do for us. I appreciate having this conversation with you all, appreciate your expertise in what you do, and thank you for your time today.